A militant gang busts into a prison, guns blazing, to free one of their own. The person they're rescuing has been charged with terrorism, so by proxy, this group must be terrorists too. But now imagine the prison is run by a nation that profits from slave labor. The terrorist they're rescuing was imprisoned for trying to end that system of exploitation. Now imagine this terrorist gang is the Avengers, and that terrorist is Captain America. Suddenly, everything shifts. Are they still terrorists or are they heroes? Freedom fighters? What really defines a terrorist? Is it violence, the fear they spread, their ideology? Or is it the more insidious answer that those in power decide who and what a terrorist is? And with that power, anyone can be a terrorist for any reason. While rebellions and uprisings have always existed, the word terrorism, as we use it today, is a relatively new invention. Its roots lie in the French Revolution, specifically the Reign of Terror, where Enlightenment thinkers who believed in reason, liberty, and secularism rose up violently against the monarchy. To them, justice was logical, human, and revolutionary. To their enemies, it was chaos, heresy, and terrorism. Their current order was justified by God. So from its very beginning, what terrorism was defined by who had the power to define terrorism. Fast forward to modern history and you can't escape how power continues to shape the narrative. If you're a millennial like me, you'll remember that after 9/11, the word terrorism was all over the place. It wasn't just a word, it was a weapon of public perception. Political leaders used it to rally citizens, justify war, and brand opposition as dangerous, foreign, and evil. But when any political act of violence gets labeled terrorism, we have to ask, is the label applied fairly or strategically? Fiction helps us explore these ideas without the emotional baggage of real lives lost. In the Ultimates reboot by Denise Campos, we're dropped into a world ravaged by hyper-capitalist, colonialist exploitation, all engineered by the Maker, an evil Reed Richard variant who helps put supervillains in control of every facet of society. A young Tony Stark takes the mantle of Iron Lad to lead a battle against the criminal enterprise controlling the planet, hoping to dismantle their unjust system of domination and exploitation. A turning point comes after a traumatic loss leads the team to question their methods and goals. They can defeat the bad guys, kick them out of their position, but the machinery that runs society is already in place. The gears are already turning, and someone else will just take the place of those missing gears. So the Ultimates realize they need a different approach. This is where the Ultimate Luke Cage becomes important. He chooses to fight the good fight from within the prison. He adopts radical philosophy to reshape the minds of his fellow inmates, the one place they can be truly free from the system. Through Cage, the Ultimates realize they need to be more than just a strike force. He shows them that changing the world isn't just about winning the fight. It's about transforming people, changing minds, and building something new. You cannot build socialism with capitalist tools. Frantz Fanon. In this way, Luke Cage echoes Fred Hampton. Hampton was a 21-year-old activist building community programs and organizing multiracial coalitions in Chicago's poorest neighborhoods. He was feeding kids, educating neighbors, preaching unity. And yet, the FBI called him a terrorist. No destruction, no war, just ideas. Powerful, inconvenient ideas. And that was enough to get him assassinated in his sleep. He was seen as dangerous not because he incites violence, but because he offers a different vision of justice. And that's what power fears most. Change. So clearly it's not just violence that makes someone a terrorist. It's power, it's influence, the ability to sway people, the ability to influence change. And in any situation, change is oppositional to power. But even then, not every revolutionary has a grand plan. One Piece is a long-running manga about pirates fighting for the world's ultimate treasure in order to become the Pirate King. Monkey D. Luffy doesn't want to be Pirate King for wealth, fame, or power. He wants freedom, and the Pirate King is the most free. However, our protagonist is no hero. He outright rejects the label. He's no revolutionary either. You won't find Luffy quoting Che Guevara. In fact, it's not even clear if he can read. The Straw Hats are not the ultimates with their express goal of shattering an unjust global system of terror. Yet, Luffy and his friends become some of the most wanted people in the world. They almost haphazardly walk their way into this wanted status, simply out of wanting to protect their friends and the people around them. Luffy declares war on the world government over a person that he's known for a couple weeks? Despite a total lack of ideology, Luffy is a terrorist. The discourse around this got heated when political streamer Hassan Piker said as much on a podcast.
Luffy is a terrorist. He is.
I think the idea of calling the goofy protagonist of a children's manga a terrorist makes people uncomfortable, especially since we're supposed to inherently root for Luffy and like him. But by all definitions, and by the rules of the world he lives in, Luffy is a terrorist. This awkward truth calls into question the morality behind terms like terrorist and freedom fighter. A line from the villain Don Quixote do Flamingo sums it up.
Pirates are evil, the Navy is just, but that's only true because history tells us so. Children who've never known peace have different values than children who've never known war. The one who wins will rewrite the definition of right and wrong. They'll decide the future and how the past is written. Will justice prevail? Why, there's no other way! The winner will define the meaning of justice.
And if good people can be terrorists, can bad people be freedom fighters? Is there a comic where our heroes are just as comfortable with using the enemy's tactics as they are, and in fact, very much enjoy it? The Invisibles is a 90s comic written by Grant Morrison about a lot of things. Anarchy, liberty, shamans, evil gods. But for this video, just know that the Invisibles are a militant anarchist group battling against demonic forces that seek domination over the collective human soul. They're the good guys. Allegedly. They have no qualms about killing, torturing, chemical warfare, or spiritual obliteration. They value anarchic freedom at any cost. A particularly brutal scene finds King Mob opening fire on a group of faceless goons. He shoots through their eyes and skulls, explodes their testicles. The goons cry out for their mothers. This King Mob is displayed as someone as cool as Bruce Lee or James Bond. But issue 12 reframes everything. In Best Man Fall, we follow the life of Bobby. We see the domestic abuse he endured, his romances, the troubled relationship with his brother. An entire life condensed into one comic. The twist comes when we realize that Bobby was one of the guards brutally killed by King Mob. Just one of the faceless fodder that screamed and cried out in disbelief as he bled out to death on the floor, leaving behind a wife and daughter and an entire life of memories. Was Bobby a combatant in employ of the enemy? Yes. Would Bobby likely have killed King Mob if he had gotten the chance? Yes. Best Men Fall is not arguing that violence is all wrong, or that any soldier that kills in self-defense is immoral. The point is that anyone can be that faceless goon. Just another hand to carry the rifle, a finger to fire the gun. Can you really claim to be saving people while killing at the same time? Can you really argue that your violence is more worthy than your opposition's? Bobby was not a villain, just a guy with a job trying to survive. But the heroes never saw that. They never thought twice about it. To them, Bobby was just another place to put their bullets, an obstacle in the way. So in that moment, who's really the terrorist? A famous line from The Dark Knight Returns, recited by Ben Affleck in Batman v Superman, goes,
"We're criminals, Alfred. We've always been criminals. Nothing's changed."
Figures like John Brown and even Osama bin Laden fit this labeling. People seeing an unjust society and committing crimes to rectify it. Many times, they would cause mass destruction, killing many in the process. And whether you're fighting for the abolition of slavery, or to have your god be the law of the land, these people are all terrorists. I mentioned Batman to segue us into The Dark Knight Returns, a story where Batman is older, retired, and absolutely hating it. He sees his city plagued by brutal street gangs and incompetent politicians. At the breaking point, he returns to the cowl with a renewed brutality, even conscripting a new Robin. This puts him in the sights of Gotham police and even President Ronald Reagan. In this, Batman clearly becomes a terrorist for defying the will of the government. But in contrast to the Ultimates, Batman isn't fighting a world run by blatant supervillains to remove exploitation. He's fighting sissy liberals and social justice. I'm serious, the story is incredibly politically charged and has a very clear agenda if you know what you're looking for. Batman is of course portrayed as the hero, but remove the dazzle of Cape Comics, and you get a story positing that violence is completely acceptable against political enemies, even when those enemies are fellow citizens. Frank Miller's Batman doesn't want peace. He wants control. He wants fear. Batman doesn't seem to want to change laws or systems. He just wants to beat up criminals, figuring the fear he inspires will simply coerce people into making better choices. This completely ignores how the power systems at play influence society and have made Gotham the way it is. This is a complete rejection of progress. He wants a return to fear, to control, to the old ways of doing things that supposedly worked out so well. He's a symbol of the conservative revolutionary, someone who rebels not to create something new, but to restore something lost. I have a video covering the entire Dark Knight series and its political themings, which you should definitely check out after this. In the real world, we've seen how dangerous this conservative revolutionary mindset can be. The Ku Klux Klan saw themselves as defenders of a pure America, which meant white, Christian, and capitalist. The same could be said for Adolf Hitler and his Reich, who claimed interlopers like Jews and trans people had corrupted their society. Those and many other groups must be purged in order to return to an imagined golden past. This ignores the fact that the wars that brought Germany to ruin were led and directed by German men following the old German ways. Modern extremist groups echo the same idea. Destroy the present to return to a golden past. For the American MAGA movement, Make America Great Again isn't just a slogan. It's a mission to reverse change, to fight modernity, to take back control. It's very much an anti-revolution, something determined to drag entire societies to the past. The current president of the United States is a felon, accused and found guilty of numerous high-level crimes throughout his lifetime. Trump's administration is blatantly anti-liberal, violating civil rights through force and working to subvert democracy through gerrymandering, vote buying, and voter roll purchase. Leading historians around the world have sounded the alarm that the Trump administration is performing a fascist coup for power, not unlike a dictator such as Benito Mussolini. Recently, Trump announced he would take over the Smithsonian Museum to rewrite history he believes to be false and anti-American. One example of this was changing the presidential impeachment section of the museum, removing prominent references to Donald Trump, who is currently the most impeached president in history. And then there's the Epstein stuff.
That really happened?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. It's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well.
By the way, I never went to the island. I never had the privilege of going to his island.
Despite all this, it's protesters of illegal deportations against police brutality that are currently being labeled as terrorists. Trump is using these opportunities to send federal troops into cities and states to seize control. Almost always, these are run by Democrats, his political opponents. People are afraid they will be dragged from their homes by masked men. The massive cuts to healthcare are leaving people to die. Victims of natural disasters are abandoned to fend for themselves. As I see it, it's clear who the terrorists really are. These people see themselves as heroes. This is despite the fact that right-wing terrorism has exploded ever since the beginning of the MAGA movement. And that should terrify us. Speaking of white supremacists, the first 2 issues of my crowd-funded comic, Brer Rabbit in the Jazz Age, is available to purchase. Follow a trickster shaman in a battle against the Ku Klux Klan at the height of their tyranny. Visit the link in the description, and while you're down there, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more comics content. People love revolution. In theory. In fiction, it's cathartic. But in reality, it's bloody, chaotic, and messy. Figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and Fred Hampton were disliked by a majority of America until their deaths. Perhaps it's because the propaganda waves against them died down, or because new information revealed the validity of their revolution. Most superhero stories follow the same script. The world is good, threat arises, hero defeats threat, world returns to normal. But the real world isn't that simple. It's never that good to return to the status quo. There is always injustice in the world. And right now, we're seeing genocides and famine justified by global superpowers for the sake of safety and profit. Even its own citizens are being exploited. More labor demanded for less goods of a worse quality. Populations crushed by debt. Education funding cuts. In some states in America, it is actually illegal to feed homeless people. You can go to jail for willingly giving someone your food. It's first a weird restriction on personal freedom, and 2, an extremely dehumanizing act to do to people. It is flat out saying that you can have so little material worth that you don't even deserve food. And that's fucking sick. So, if someone like King Mob showed up and assaulted the politicians and lawmakers who created that law, he would be a terrorist. But isn't the greater terror coming from the people in charge? Aren't they causing more widespread damage than any one person ever could? And are the people who voted for and support these policies equally culpable? Let me be clear, I don't think it would be cool if a bunch of people got shot in the face simply for how they voted. I do believe in democracy. I believe people's minds need to be changed. That any amount of violence inflicted on a society will be repelled if the people themselves just don't agree with it. And most importantly, revolution doesn't end with victory. It's what comes after that's the hard part. The rebuild. This is the part of the story you don't see in superhero stories. It's a genre shift from high-action blockbuster to political drama. A funny story came from the Taliban in Afghanistan after they took over the government. They remarked how utterly boring the life as a government official was and how much they missed the jihad. No more intense camaraderie, no more freedom fighting, just procedural business as usual. That's exactly why we like revolution in fiction. It's exciting. Most of the heroes we see in fiction are fighters for the status quo. The villains are the ones who want to alter society in some way, often in ways that benefit them personally. But if we go back to the Ultimates, they are the villains hoping to enact change to society, propagandized against and feared by much of the populace. Change is scary. Change is disruption, chaos, uncertainty. So it makes sense why sudden and perhaps violent change would be positioned as a bad thing, even if the outcome is a net improvement. However, change is also natural. Culture builds off its past and reacts to its present to create new things. This dialectic happens whether we like it or not. There has never been a truly stagnant society, and the groups who attempt to hold on to these traditions by force have led to some of the world's greatest atrocities. Power abhors change. Why change things when you're already at the top? The only way to go is down. I'm reminded of the anti-spirals from Gurren Lagann, beings who advanced to a hive mind race and determined further evolution in any species would lead to disaster. They suspended themselves, their people never changing or moving, and when the humans rise up, they will destroy universes to stop them. That's what unchecked power does. It resists change no matter the cost. At the beginning of the video, I asked what makes someone a terrorist. So here's my answer. In Albert Camus' philosophical essay, The Rebel, an essay on man in revolt, he writes, "The slave who opposes his master is not concerned, let us note, with repudiating his master as a human being. He repudiates him as a master. He denies that he has the right to deny him, a slave, on grounds of necessity. The master is discredited to the exact extent that he fails to respond to a demand which he ignores. If men cannot refer to a common value, recognized by all as existing in each one, then man is incomprehensible to man. The rebel demands that this value should be clearly recognized in himself, because he knows or suspects that, without this principle, crime and disorder would reign throughout the world. An act of rebellion on his part seems like a demand for clarity and unity. The most elementary form of rebellion, paradoxically, expresses an aspiration to order." And this is our answer. What does the terrorist believe should be the order of the world? One of master and slave, or of mutual respect? Do they cohabitate or conquer? So for me, a terrorist fights for hierarchy. Freedom fighter fights for equality. I can only personally expand that definition by saying that any change made should benefit the most amount of people. That it should be an intersectional kind of revolution that takes all into account. It's not simple, it's not easy, it's messy, and so, well, that's all we got. When someone dares to stand against the system, even for the right reasons, someone will always call them dangerous. Someone will always call them a terrorist. Can there be a bloodless revolution? That was the promise of democracy, and in some ways, democratic societies have made great progress. In fact, it can be argued that if these democratic systems change to better reflect the populace, democracy could lead us to a bloodless revolution. But change never happened due purely to voting. Again, Martin Luther King Jr. and his civil rights campaign was extremely unpopular before his death. People often condemn protests and riots as disturbances and violence, but they do a good job of gaining attention and showing where the populace is at. So sometimes democracy works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it needs a little help. Today's villains may be tomorrow's heroes. Justice is fluid, change is inevitable. What I think is that being morally righteous isn't enough. Just kicking out bad actors and replacing them isn't enough. I think the real revolution is what you build after the fight ends. How you wield power when no one is left to stop you.